back to Trojans Live, brought to you by Chevrolet, the only brand to earn J.D. Power dependability on cars, trucks, and SUVs 2 years in a row. Get behind the wheel today at your Southern California Chevy dealer and see for yourself why Chevrolet keeps bringing home award after award. Learn more at SoCalChevy.com. Jordan Moore, John Jackson, and the defensive coordinator for your Trojans, Clancy Pendergast, joins the show now. And this was a defensive-heavy class, so a lot of new toys for you to play with, Coach, and a lot of them at the linebacker position. 6 of the 18 are listed at linebackers, although that sort of means different things in your system, some inside, some outside. Was it simply a matter of, hey, you guys looked at the roster and you said, this is an area where we need to bulk up for the future, or were the talents just so good that you said, you know, we're taking the best player there?
Well, I think it was a combination of both. When you start looking at the linebacker position that was available on the West Coast a year ago, we kind of earmarked these guys as being a really good group, and we always want to win the West Coast, and we felt like we did with the group that we added today.
You know, again, defensively, your wish list came true as far as you're concerned. I mean, you made out today, you know, individually. How do those conversations go as coaches? I mean, are you the, you know, you have to get up on the table and say, look, Clay, I need, you know, X amount of players, or is it just, is it a combined effort? But I mean, I know it's combined with all the coaching staff, but when you start getting down to the numbers, how many players that you get on the defensive side versus the offense, how do those conversations sort of work out?
Well, when I first got here in the spring of 2016, the numbers were really slanted offensively, and one of the first conversations that Coach Helton and I had when we talked about the job was the numbers of the guys and how we're going to try to get it evened up a little bit. And I felt like that it would take a couple years to get the numbers to where it was going to be even, offense and defense. And, you know, through the D-line, the linebackers, and the secondary. And, you know, last year's D-line class was a step in the right direction. And I think this year's linebacker and secondary class is a step in the right direction to give us some quality depth to where we feel good about playing, you know, 18 guys. You know, there was games where we only traveled 23 defensive players on the road. So, and that was this year. You know, you walk into the Cotton Bowl and you look and you got 3 healthy corners. So, you know, the NFL goes in with 4 corners.
Right.
You know, one guy gets dinged, and then you got to move a guy, and then you got to move a guy, and you move a guy, and then you're patching holes. So we felt like that, you know, solidifying some more talented players within the back 7 would help us be able to grow as a defense.
Yeah, we talk about linebackers, but you closed on some corners today. How important was that for you? As obviously you had some depth issues at times last year, but going forward, you have some veteran corners for this year, but there's not a whole lot in the future, and now you're stocked up.
Right. You know, those are guys that we earmarked. I mean, in my time that I went out in the spring to evaluate and watch guys practice, you know, I went by and saw Elijah. I went down to San Diego to see Stewart. You know, those are guys that I went and watched practice and said, we got to have these are guys that we've got to have. And saw Chase, you know, and Talanoa obviously is a big hitting safety that we felt like could add to the physicality of our defense. Like Coach Helton mentioned, my scheme likes to have a safety up around the line of scrimmage, and we play a lot of safeties up in the box, so to speak, and he fits that mold.
You know, the big home run has to be, you know, for me anyway, looking at it, is the cornerback spot. I mean, you get 3 quality corners that, you know, are – and they were late. I mean, you had to ride this string out. It wasn't like they were just, you know, that they were early commits to you guys.
It was a busy last week.
It was a busy last week. Yeah, you guys were racking up the miles, especially down to San Diego. But you know, with these guys, do you get the type of corner that you need for your defense? Guys that can line up and play press man coverage. In the case of Isaac Taylor-Stewart, he has the size and he can match it with some of the tall receivers in the Pac-12. Those are things that you're sort of looking for?
When I first came back, I felt like that we had to identify at all 3 levels of the defense what are the measurables we're going to look for at each position. We want a certain height, we want a certain weight, we want a certain length, and we want to be a big defense. And I think you look now at the receivers within the pack, within college football and within the NFL, they're bigger receivers. And we wanted to be big at corner. We could be physical, and we could play with length, and we can disrupt the timing of the routes and also be able to get our hands up and knock balls down. And I think all the guys that we got have the ability to do that. And like Coach Helton mentioned, it was a big thing to me that we want guys that have played offense, that are DBs, so they have a feel for. Most of the really great defensive backs that I've been around have been really good offensive players. So they get a step ahead of knowing what the routes are going to be because they've played wide or they played running back. And all these guys have played on both sides of the ball, and we're really excited about getting an opportunity to work with them.
I've heard you say many times that you run a communication-based defense, and you have really high-level football conversations with Cameron Smith, with a guy like Chris Hawkins who's leaving. How many opportunities are there for you to talk ball with some of the guys coming in to get a sense of the acumen, particularly of these future middle linebackers in your system?
Yeah, I think when we get them on campus, there's a period of a meeting that we'll have on Saturday, usually, where I can sit down and talk with them and show them tape of the drills and start with the drill tape of the things that I would do to develop them, and then obviously within the defense, some of the base communications that we use to set the front, how we rotate our coverages, how we communicate within our coverages, and does it make sense to them, and can they diagnose that quickly in a short meeting? It's kind of like put them through a mini combine.
Yeah.
When you take them to the combine, how quick can they retain it? And all this whole crew could do that very quickly. And EA up at Bishop Gorman, he's such a dynamic athlete. I mean, Coach Nansen and I were on a plane the next morning after the Pac-12 championship game to just go watch his state championship. So you know how important he was for us to get, not only to me, but for the USC defensive team.
Okay. I like to call him EA because we've been working on our pronunciation.
I got it spelled phonetically.
You're good with EA.
Right,
Paula EA Naatioti.
Yeah, I can get EA.
He's good with EA. I promise.
Okay, good.
EA it is.
The one thing that sticks out in this class, I mean, like you said, you addressed some needs, but you got a lot of linebackers in this class. But when I look at it and see some of these guys, it almost looks like their talents might even be able to move maybe to defensive end or rush in. It looks like 6 linebackers. Of course, you only play, 2, maybe 3, right? But is there the versatility within this group that some of these guys can even move to other positions if necessary?
I think that's one thing about coaching in college, and you want to identify high school kids and what they're going to eventually be. I think there's a couple guys that could grow into a 3-technique, 5-technique type player in a year or two. But the most important thing with those guys is we wanted guys that were going to be knee benders and not waist benders, so they can change direction. They can play on the perimeter. So much of the game, not only at the college level but even in the NFL level, is becoming perimeter oriented. So having the ability to get guys on your roster that can change direction, and even if they do grow into a bigger body, they can still put their foot in the ground and change direction sideways.
A big day for this USC defense, and Clancy Pendergast, his job to get them all to work this season and see what they've got out there. Again, spring football starts March 6th, and again, all practices will be open to the Trojan family, so an opportunity to come out and watch that USC defense grow. The head coach, you've been waiting for him all night. I see him now. It looks like he's next on Trojans Live.